Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Solitaire Gems. Thank you so much for those tuning in live with me, and thank you so much for those who have joined me on this replay as well. Guys, my name is Jacinta Martin. For those who may or may not know, I'm the creator of the blog Fruitful Gems. I'm also the creator of a podcast called Polished Gems and this YouTube channel where I will share with you one nugget, one gem with you all weekly, as led as well. So, guys, tonight on Solitaire Gems, we have a good one for you. I don't know if you had a chance to check out the title, but we're talking about transition into position in due time. And I'm going to get into more about what that means. I'm super excited about this transition into position. This has really been on God's heart, and I'm going to tell you why in just a little bit more. But tonight on Solitaire Gems, as I said, based on the title, I'm going to share one gem with you about how to transition into position in due time. Now, the reason why I do this, I teach people how to heal and rebuild, to become whole in their mind, their body, and spirit using the nine fruits of God's spirit. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what we need to be whole and functioning people, right? All three of those parts have to work together for us to be exactly who we need to be, for us to also get in position, right, in our lives. And I'm going to explain more of what that means. But a little bit more about me. I've been blogging since 2016. I'm a two-time author as well, and I am the author of a devotional called From Faith to Faith, a 45 days devotional, as well as a novel called The Fragmented Soul. I'm also a mama too, and a real estate agent in the state of Georgia. I'm so excited for tonight's one gem. Can you tell? I can't even talk right. So, guys, let me know in the comments first off. Are you wondering how to transition into your rightful position in due time? I'm going to say that again. I want to slow it down so that you guys can catch what I'm saying. Are you wondering how to transition into your rightful position in due time? If you've ever thought about that, or maybe it's not even a question that's even crossed your mind, right? But for some of us, that may have been. I know for me, there was a time when that was the question on my mind. Am I right in the right space that I'm supposed to be in? Am I supposed to move over here or move over there? Right? I just wanted to know so that I could live a life of purpose. I remember I wanted so bad to live a life of purpose that I just didn't understand where my position is. So if that's you, there's no right or wrong answer. If no, you're not really wondering, that's perfectly fine. If it's yes, you that's been on your mind. Like I said, it was something that was on my mind, and I know it's also something that's on God's heart because He started to help me answer more and more about that as well. So make sure to drop me a comment below. I love when you guys drop me comments as well. So, like I said, I'm super excited to share with you this one gem tonight, right? To talk about how you can transition into your rightful position in due time, in your due time, right? Now, what I also want you to do for me, I want to take a quick pause right here. If you've been enjoying these gems, because I've been doing this, I think back in December, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think we started quite in November, but since December, I believe. Excuse me, it might be November. If you've been enjoying these, what I want you to do is not only invite a friend to go ahead and watch these, share these with a friend, but more importantly, if this has really blessed you, what I want you to do is head over to our Patreon, where we have more gems like this and more exclusive content that we have for our Patreon members. What we've actually just recently did, and I want to make this announcement, is moved our podcast over. So Polished Gems will now be exclusively digitally remastered and remade for your guys' listening pleasure over on our Patreon. And our Patreon, let me go ahead and put that up at the bottom ticker for you so you guys can check that out. You can become a gem by joining our Patreon at www.patreon.com/fruitful gems. And that's gems spelled Gems. So, guys, now that I've gotten that out the way, let's dive right into this gem that I want to share with you. I'm so excited about this that I couldn't even talk correctly tonight. But what I wanted to do is, of course, like I do all the time, is give you background context, right? I want to start there. I remember a couple of years ago, I want to say around 2019, I believe it was, that I asked God this prayer. I said, God, my prayer was, help me to find a job. God, please bless me with a job. What was happening was I was moving from being a stay at home mom, and I had a couple of things that I had done, odd jobs, things like that, but nothing like truly just stable enough or even where I really wanted to be. So I remember I asked God for a job. I was like, God, if you could just bless me with a job, you know how we get when we pray those prayers. If you just bless me with this, I'll I'll be better than I was before. I'll do right by you, God, and I'll help X, Y, and Z and this, that, and the third. You know how we get when we desperately want something and we go to God asking for it or even the strategy for how to get it. Well, I was like that. I think I prayed for about 9 months, pretty much every day, if not every other day, um, 9 months straight. That was my prayer. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't just pray this prayer going, God's a genie, hand me my job. I didn't do that. I began to sow seeds of faith. And what I mean by seeds of faith is because I have heard the Bible verse, faith without works is dead, like pounded into my head. Of course, that's in James chapter 2, 14 through 16. And we recite it over and over and over again. And if you've been to church at all, right, that you've heard this verse at least one good time. If it wasn't for Easter, it was for Christmas, right? So I knew this verse so deeply in my mind and in my heart that I was like, okay, I'm not going to look at God as a genie. I'm going to actually do something. So my seeds of faith was to get things moving in my favor. I began to seek help for getting my resume revamped. I think my resume had been not touched in like years. So I actually ended up reaching out to a person who was recommended through my church, and I asked them if they could take a look at my resume and if they could revamp it for me. And they did. So I actually sowed a seed, paid for that. And then I began, after they got it back to me and I reviewed it, and I told them, this is good. I'll go ahead and work with this. I started applying for jobs like literally every single day, just hoping that something would come up. Um, what's so funny is I was in such a season of desperation that I think I would have taken anything. Had anyone said yes, I would have been like, okay, I can start yesterday. Okay. This is how badly I wanted a job. Now, I remember every time that I would reply, of course, you know how they do those quick responses back to you. If they don't want you to go to the next round, you of course will get that information in email from a job. And if they do want you to go to the next round, of course, you know, you have your next set of steps. So what happened for me, I would check my email literally every day and get another response from an employer saying, no, thank you, you're not the right fit, or that the company has hired within, or we went in a different direction. I really despise those words because I heard them often. What ended up happening was that timing of all of that rejection for me, it shook me to my core. What I mean by that is I began feeling so deeply rejected, like that I wasn't worthy, that no job was coming for me. Because here's what was happening. The reason why I so desperately wanted a job was I was going through a time of separation from my husband. But not only that, I was enduring these negative emotions of, well, why did my marriage fall apart? And why did this happen? And my my family was just going through a lot. Like, I was trying to figure out how to be a good mom to my two children in the midst of this separation, and all the while still looking for a job. Now you might be saying, oh my goodness, that sounds like a lot. And I know I'm not the only person who's been through a lot in a season, right? Where you desperately, desperately wanted something from God. Like, if you didn't get this breakthrough, you didn't know what you were going to do. That's who I'm talking to. And like I said, if it's not you, it's okay. Let your friends know this. Let your friends see this, because there's somebody going through who needs to know how to get through to the other side. And that's what this is going to also be about tonight. So what it did was drive me to a really, really dark place of just, I started reminiscing about the past, my past sins. I started wondering if I was good enough, or even like, my thought process just went to a dark, dark, dark space that I wasn't even sure if I could come out of. And if I got one more rejection letter, probably was going to scream, right? But this cycle for me seemed like it went on forever, and I couldn't shake it. I couldn't get out of it until finally one day, this job called me back and they said, "Hey, we would love to interview you for the next phase." I was so happy. If you can't tell by the smile on my face, I was so relieved. It's like, okay, I am good enough. I am worthy enough, right? Of this job. And the company asked me to take a test for the second part of the interview. And guess what ended up happening? I ended up failing it. I know you're like, wait a minute, where's the happy ending, right? Where's the sunshine? Where's the rainbows? Where's the happily ever after? Well, let me tell you, I've I've have lived a life where I have to press, I have to fight to get through a lot of times to the other side. My transition process in my life in particular has not been the prettiest thing. But I've seen the hand of God so mightily, even in the transitions, it to getting into the positioning where He truly wants me. But when I failed that portion, here's what's funny. I don't even understand why. I don't even think to this day I understand fully. But the company decided for some reason to give me a second chance on that exam. It was at that moment that I prayed to God. I said, okay, thank you so much for the second chance. Help me not to fail this. And I said, but then I also said this. I said, help me not to fail this. But if this is the job for me, then let it be so. And if it's not, I'll be crushed, but I'll understand. I hope you heard what I said in that prayer. A lot of times when God is transitioning us into position, we forget to surrender. We forget to let go of our will and allow God's will to be done. That prayer, that little prayer of surrendering is what God desired for me in that moment. Here's what I can tell you. Here's what I can tell you. God, that same thing happened to me when I even took my real estate exam. I had to pray a prayer of surrender to be able to get into position to be a real estate agent, because what ended up happening was my heart motive was not where God wanted it to be. I was so bent on, during that time of my separation, in all honesty, I was bent on, I'm going to get this job. I am going to make all this money. That was my focus. And it was on the money. It was on showing up my ex-husband, if I have to be brutally honest. And God was like, I didn't ask you to come into real estate for that. I asked you to come into real estate because I have work for you to do for my people in the kingdom. They need help getting into homes, opening up restaurants, opening up um, different type of businesses. So you thinking that that's what this was for? That's not what it was for. Let me tell you, God is big on heart motive. So with that being said, I'm going to give you the gem for the night. The one solitaire gem for tonight that God wants you to know about transitioning into position and it being in due time is this: re examine to see if you can handle what you're asking for. I'm going to read that one more time and then I'm going to explain why that's the gem. God wants you to remember to re examine to see if you can handle what you're asking for. What ended up happening with me in particular was during my time of waiting and even preparing for that job and all the effort of me applying left and right and waiting on employers to respond. What I saw was I was trying to make something happen in my time instead of in God's due time. There's a big difference. When we try to rush and get something to manifest or become our reality in our time, often we don't take into consideration all the little things that are going on in and around us. I give you a prime example. Back to that real estate example that I gave you. Had I gotten my real estate license when I wanted it with that mindset, I would not be helping the people I've been fortunate to help. I wouldn't have had a heart of service for the people that I've been helping in real estate because my heart motive was so out of whack. It was not in alignment with what God desired for me and for his people that I was called to help. What God wanted was me to help his people. And the only way I could do that was to re examine to see if I could handle what I was asking for. I'm going to go back to that other example about the job. The reason why he wanted me to re examine to see if I could handle what I was asking for is because, in all honesty, I had barely been separated from my husband at the time and was learning how to live without him. So, in learning how to live without him, what I had to do was focus on me. And not to say that I couldn't have had a job at that time, but in all honesty, I would have gotten fired. I think I spent a few months, literally after in my separation, the first few, maybe even 3 to 4 months, in fetal position because the overwhelming sadness that I felt, the overwhelming anger that I felt was really too much to bear. What I didn't realize was I needed to heal that area of me instead of trying to throw that energy. What I wanted to do, the reason why I wanted a job, I wanted the focus off of the pain. I wanted the focus off of my sadness. I wanted the focus to be shifted to somewhere else rather than deal with it. Now, if you're like me and you've tried to run away from your pain and your sadness, it's quite understandable. A lot of times we deal with pain and sadness that is so overwhelming that I understand that your mind, your body, and your spirit just can't take anymore. So you're like, if I don't redirect this energy into something else, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. So I totally get it. And it's okay that you often think that. But hear me and hear me well. God desires for you to be able to deal with the pain, deal with the sadness, so that you can handle what it is that you desire or that you're even asking for. So, what I did instead, since the job was taking a minute to come, and was I ended up going to therapy and dealing with my transition into my new season of being a single mom. And even at the time, as I was transitioning into that, I was still studying for my real estate license and working on my novel. So there was already work to be done. And I didn't need a job to deter me from any of those things. Because that's exactly what a job would have done. Had I started making the money I really wanted to make, had the job come before I finished the real estate license, had the job come before I was in the process of working on my book, I probably wouldn't have my novel. I definitely would have stopped studying for my real estate license. Because my plate, as you can see, was already full. But I wasn't satisfied with it because the pain was still there. So, but I want to leave you with this. I don't want you to think for 1 second that there's anything wrong with you desiring a spouse, a car, a place to live of your own, even a baby, or a job like I did, whatever your heart is desiring or even dreaming about. But the question I want you to examine is this, and you can ask God this: is God, go to God, whatever it is. And it looks like this. Here's what the question is: it's God, can I handle the spouse that I'm asking for? If he says no, or if he says not yet, go, well, then God, help prepare me for the spouse that I desire, right? Especially whatever it is that God has promised you, right? Especially if it's been a business, if it's been a car, if it is a spouse that you'll get remarried again, if it's a new opportunity or job, whatever that is, it's not wrong to have heart's desires. Our hearts desire things daily, and we might not even understand why we fully desire it. I'm in such a new season where my desires have changed because God has shown me some things that He wants to do for me. He's shown me some promises. So as I'm transitioning into position, what I've learned over time is that it's in due time and in due season. But just as the one gem, I have to ask, like, if God gave it to me right now, can I handle what I'm asking for? And if I need to re examine that, I promise you it'll be worth your while to sit at His feet and ask. Because let me tell you, waiting patiently on the Lord, there's nothing like it. He has the best timing to also provide things for us as well. So I want to read you something that I felt led to read, and it's from my devotional. I don't know if you guys could see this because my light is so bright sometimes, but it's from Faith to Faith, a 45 days devotional. And this is my book I was telling you about, my first book I ever wrote. But it says this. This is day 31, and I may have read this another time, but I want to read this particular portion for you. It says, one day the pressure of wanting my life to produce fruit caused me to break down. At that particular moment, it seemed like I could not get my life together. So I started to doubt the visions God showed me for my future. That is when I asked Him, why is my journey so hard? And it seems like I missed my time. His response to me was, just as you would exercise your muscles to get stronger, so must you exercise your faith. He lovingly reminded me that this journey was new to me because when I was 18 years old and on a Sunday morning, in fact, I made a choice to leave the church and walk away from Him. See, I wanted my blessings instantly. But as the great potter God is, He knew I had to first be mended and molded to be able to sustain the weight of my assignments. So if you are in a position where it is not yet time for things to manifest on the surface that God is working on in you, continue to water the seed. Allow it to take root in your heart and mind, because in due season it will sprout and finally grow. So I wanted to leave you with that thought, and wanted to just let you know that if you're in the middle of transitioning into a position, in due time and in due season, just continue to remember that and sit at God's feet. Guys, I hope this gem has blessed you. by all means, if it has, please share it with a friend, but also head over to our Patreon page, which is www.patreon.com/fruitful gems. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank you for your time. And until next time, have a wonderful evening. Bye, guys.